Story 1. A friend of mine sat his parents and siblings down after finally building up the courage. He was worried about how they would react and whether he might be disowned or if it might create tension with some of them. After he told them, their response was essentially, "Okay, you realize we've all known that for years, right?" He thought he had been super careful and subtle and all that. When he told me, I just burst out laughing because he's very flamboyant. Story 2. I am a couple of months away from becoming a parent, but I always remember the first time I ever heard about homosexuality. Not literally, but I remember I was a young boy, and some guy on the playground explained to me that some men are attracted to other men. The first thing that I thought was, oh, that's my brother. I can't say that there was anything he said or did specifically, I just knew. When he eventually came out to me years later, I literally almost laughed because he was so nervous and sincere when he sat me down and told me, and all I could say was, "Dude, I know. I've always known." Story 3. I am straight, but my mom knew I was gay apparently. I found this out when I was 18 and sat her down to tell her I was moving out. She started crying before I could even start talking and later confessed she thought I was going to finally come out. She is super girly girl and just could not compute that I was not. Story 4. My mom and I had a chat one time when I was feeling a bit down, and she told me, in a different time or age, I might have entered into a gay relationship with a close family friend. It was only afterwards that I realized she was telling me it was okay by her if I was gay. Story 5. When I was about 4, I apparently asked my mom why two girls couldn't get married to each other. I came out to her officially in my early 20s, and was informed that it wasn't much of a surprise because of that, and because I had always remarked on the beauty of women's bodies. Story 6. I asked my dad to replay the scene where Cameron Diaz flips her hair in The Mask, like 4 times. And then I asked my mom to replay the scene where Kate Winslet looks up from under her hat in Titanic a few times. And don't get me started on my obsession with Nicole Kidman in Practical Magic, or Julia Roberts in Pretty Woman. Story 7. I thought I had free rein to take the Victoria's Secret catalog, since I had a built-in excuse. Turns out, having 6 of them under your bed still raises some eyebrows and leads to an awkward conversation. Story 8. My father knew I was gay early on. I was not an athletic youngster and did not have many manly hobbies. I was bookish and shy. He tried to fix that by withholding any physical affection, meting out harsh punishments, and forcing me to partake in activities he thought would toughen me up. This was in stark contrast to my younger brother, who was still being hugged and celebrated and getting obvious preferential treatment. At some point in my early teens, I reached a breaking point and asked why he hated me so much. This led to a very awkward family meeting where it was explained, except neither he nor my mother could bear to use the word gay or homosexual. So I was told I was being treated this way because I was different. This was long enough ago, and I was still fairly naive, so I had no idea what they were getting at, other than the fact that yes, I was kind of a nerdy weirdo. So I dealt with being the unloved kid, and left home and went low contact at 17, just weeks after graduating. It wasn't until my early 20s when I reestablished some contact that I mentioned a girl I was dating, the shocked look on my father's face, and it finally all fell into place. He didn't think I was nerdy, he thought I was gay. If only he'd had the courage to say what he actually meant, I could have cleared that up for him years ago. I am most definitely straight. I had my first deep crush on a very pretty girl at like 6 years old and have had no doubts since. So, I might be one of the few straight people to know about what it is like to come out as gay to unsupportive parents. It sucked, but it really helped with my empathy, and I am probably at least partially as progressive as I am because of it. In a good news footnote, while my father was wrong, and an asshole, and I will never see an apology, he has mellowed in the 30 years since. I have 2 trans nephews, and he has continued to support his grandchildren and argued with other members of the family that might have otherwise excluded them. Story 9. When I was 15, my mom knocked on my bedroom door and opened it while I was falling asleep at night. She whispered, "Are you bisexual?" I said, "Ew, no." She said, "Okay, you just talk about how hot girls are a lot." 5 years later, I came out to her as bisexual and she said, "I figured as much." Story 10. I have a teenage son that I know is gay, but he hasn't come out to me or my wife. You know your kids. For every parent that is shocked about their child's revelation, there's probably 100 other parents that knew pretty early on. He'll tell us when he's ready. We've made it abundantly clear to our children that we honestly don't care. We just want them safe and happy. Story 11. I had a friend that I used to work with in college come out to me as gay. He said I was the first person he told. I just told him, "And this is news?" and laughed. He was shocked and told me he thought he hid it well and asked me why I didn't say anything to him sooner. First, he had a very flamboyant personality and thought being a football player was hiding it. It wasn't. And second, I told him who he was attracted to wasn't any of my business and he was a good person regardless, so I didn't care. He later came out to his parents who pretended to be okay with him until he turned 18 and threw all his stuff in garbage bags on the lawn. He went to stay with his boyfriend after that and we lost touch. Story 12. It's kind of the opposite, but I asked my mother what a slingback was, and she looked me right in the eyes and told me I was a disappointment of a gay child. Story 13. I'm the guy that my parents thought was gay and wasn't. Apparently, being a dude with long luxurious hair, having female and LGBT friends, being a fan of the Spice Girls, enjoying crafting hobbies like sewing and beading, working at a fabric store, not dating at all in high school and so on, all that made them suspicious. Dad breathed a mighty sigh of relief when I introduced him to my first girlfriend, whom I met at the fabric store, where we bonded over our shared love of crafting. Story 14. I was always a rough and tumble tomboy growing up, very much into stereotypical boy hobbies. When I entered high school, I dated a little, but I never was boy crazy or very into the whole scene. My grandpa, the greatest man I've ever known, let my best girlfriend and I spend a week at his house. We were extremely close and would cuddle on the couch. He suddenly and without any preamble exclaims, "I voted for Hillary, you know?" We were like, "Okay, Grandpa." And a few minutes later, he begins discussing famous gay actors and actresses. We continue to say, "Okay, Grandpa," because we just weren't getting what he was saying. Finally, he's had enough of the subtlety and says, "I don't care that you're gay." We both burst out laughing. I am straight and she is straight. I'm just a very touchy-feely person, so we explained it, but I always remember it fondly. Story 15. I'm a friend. When our high school friend came out over dinner in high school, there were 5 of us including him. 2 guys signed up to join the military, a college football player, and a strip club DJ. We all looked at him and laughed and said, "Yeah, we've always known. So what?" Even though I think he might have just been figuring it out, which isn't bad. Sometimes we are unwilling or unable to see what others see in us. It was a good experience. As far as the tells, we had none that were glaring. 98% of people would assume my friend was straight. But it's probably the same as if someone doesn't have confidence. It's not always something overarching but a series of microactions that clue it in. Either way, almost 30 years later, he's happily married to a dude, we are all still friends, and no one had to endure being embarrassed about anything in our lives in our group, which is okay. Story 16. By the way, they said, they've known since Attack of the Clones. I had a massive obsession with Padme and Anakin, and they knew I had a crush on both of them. They waited until I figured it out myself before saying anything. Story 17. My mom didn't know. She just went into my room and found a note a friend had given me that I hadn't had the chance to read yet. It was in my little electronic safe that you can only get the key and combination for by solving puzzles similar to those found in the game Resident Evil. I'm really upset with you, Mom. Story 18. My dad said he always knew I was a tomboy, sporty, just fundamentally disinterested in skirts or dolls, which might today read more as a gender thing than a sexuality thing, but yeah, I turned out to be gay and pretty androgynous. Story 19. My brother is transgender and we all knew the whole time, but honestly, I couldn't really tell you why. Like, obviously, he didn't care for feminine clothes, but I know girls that don't dress feminine, and it wasn't like that. I have no idea. I just know that when he came out to us, it was just like, "Yep, we know, we love you exactly the way you want to be." And that was it. Story 20. My youngest son is gay, 24 years old. My husband and I knew when he was young. There was no doubt about it. He has an older brother and sister, so as involved parents, you just know. His likes and dislikes, his obsession with Polly Pockets, Bratz dolls, and his Disney Barbie princesses that he toted everywhere, either in a basket or in the trunk of his push train car. Hilary Duff and Gwen Stefani obsession. Hollaback Girl is still a family favorite. His friendship with Tucker in kindergarten through second grade rang some bells, especially since it was three besties with Annie, but everything was Tucker, Tucker, Tucker. As he got older, he had more female friends than male. He didn't date girls. He showed no signs of being interested in girls during puberty, unlike his brother. Nobody in the family was shocked when he felt the need to come out at 15 years old because we already knew. Story 21. My nephew, who I raised for a good part of his life, was adorable when he was small. He would come into my room when I was doing my hair and makeup and watch me intently. He also loved flowers and gardening. That doesn't make a kid likely to be gay, but you just feel it. When he came out, it was almost like he was disappointed at how little we were shocked. We said, "We know. It doesn't change anything. We love you. And we always will." Story 22. My kid, 17, is non-binary, and I knew. They are assigned female at birth and, around 5, cut off their long hair in favor of a pixie cut. They would take joy in people not being able to tell if they were a boy or a girl, and that just kept going. By adolescence, around 12, they very intentionally cultivated an androgynous aesthetic. It was beyond a fashion preference. They were visibly uncomfortable wearing traditionally female clothing, such as having to wear a dress at a wedding they were in. I had a gut feeling, and then they posted some things to an Instagram account that they forgot I also followed because that was a condition of having social media at 10 years old, and then I definitely knew. I'm glad I found out early. It allowed me to put them in counseling for anxiety with a counselor who coincidentally listed LGBTQ adolescence as one of her focus areas. I can admit that I was a little bummed that my kid didn't feel ready to tell me. I know it wasn't about me, but it felt that way at the time. But if I wasn't going to be their safe person, I was going to put an appropriate safe person in their life and not wait for that void to be filled by some internet stranger. Edit. Wow, you guys made me feel all warm and fuzzy. Sometimes, Reddit can be such a boost. Story 23. I'm a mom of a kid who came out as gay at age 13, and it wasn't surprising. I had first suspected it when he started using my nail polish and developed a big interest in My Little Pony. But it was all but confirmed when I walked into his room and found him chatting online with another boy, both unclothed. It was about 6 months afterward that he came out to everyone at once. Story 24. Trans guy here. As a young teenager, I came out as a lesbian several years before deciding to transition. I remember very vividly being in the car and asking my mom if she had bought new laundry detergent because it made my clothes smell really good, and I had a couple of girls at school remark on how good I smelled. She looked away from the road for a moment to look me straight in the eyes and said, "Oh, you must have liked that, didn't you?" with the biggest smirk on her face. That was my big, "oh, she knows" moment, which of course she did. I was super masculine to the point that I was regularly chased out of women's restrooms and constantly mistaken for a boy. I was adopted as an infant, and I know without a shred of doubt that I won the parent lottery. Loving, accepting parents are a gift. Story 25. Over 15 years ago, my younger sister spent years trying to convince my mom I was gay. I was definitely a jock, wrestling, football, rugby, etc., had dated girls before and was going to university for engineering. Fairly typical Midwestern straight guy stuff. I was always comfortable in my skin, though, so I didn't mind dressing in weird costumes or just acting weird to get a laugh from people. I also did marching band and theater. My sister used these signs to convince her. Anyway, my mom would periodically look at me very seriously and tell me she would love me no matter what, and I could always tell her anything. I was like, "Great, thanks, Mom, that's weird. I love you too. Why are you saying it like that?" And moved on. I had zero clue why she was saying that. I ended up living with a gay roommate in the dorms, another sign, and at one point went to a disco party where we all wore egregious 60s get-ups. Well, my mom found my tight-fitting floral shirt, feather boa, and 6-inch platforms and sat me down, telling me I could trust her and come out to her because she already knew my secret. My sister was in the hallway falling over, trying to contain her laughter while I had to explain to my mom that I'm not gay, just apparently weirder than I thought. I love my mom for being so supportive, but darn, props to my sis for sticking with the bit for years. Story 26. I don't know what I am. I've dated 4 people in my life. I'm a 27-year-old woman, and 3 of them were women. But my partner, the person I intend to spend the rest of my life with, is a man. My parents only ever cared that we were happy and healthy. They set no other expectations on us. When I was in college and realized I had a crush on another girl, I was in tears and went to my mother because I didn't know why I was feeling that way when almost everyone else I knew was straight. She just took me in her arms and told me that she always knew that I was a little different ever since I was 4 years old, jumping around in mud puddles with my pink tutu and my brother's toy army helmet on, scaring all the neighborhood boys, and that I would always be all right. I don't think my mother knew what I was or am either. My first 3 significant others were women. I only held hands with the first one, smooched the second one. Both of those relationships lasted less than 2 months combined. I thought maybe I was a lesbian. My mother just said, "Don't worry about labels, just be happy." But here I am, living my best life with a man who I cannot picture ever being without. I don't know what I am, but I'm also in no way concerned about that. I am me. I am a loving partner to my boyfriend and fur mommy to my baby puppy. That's enough for me. I don't need or want to be anything else.